Hey guys, I was asked to respond basically to a video here. Almost all headphones are inaccurate, only these are good. And he's got a bunch of pictures of headphones bad for studio use. So basically I kind of glanced at the beginning, middle, and end of this video because it's like 17 minutes long. And basically he goes through all this propaganda that he found online about the best headphones for studio use, and he finds measurements. Now it looks like I think he went to DIY Audio Heaven. I don't know, these measurements look like something. Let me see, Sony. Now the thing is, basically he goes through all these different headphones and he's like saying that these are shit. And so he sits around on DIY Audio Heaven here, and Audio Science Review. That's where he's getting these measurements from, which is fine. These are a good resource, but the problem is he's doing that because okay, now he's using Artings and shit, but so yeah, he's going around and using various sources: Artings, Audio Science Review, DIY Audio Heaven. But this doesn't show you the target that this guy is using. Whatever your target is what is going to make a headphone look flat. So I even have on my website all these different targets. And SonarWorks deliberately tries to make the HD 600, 650 looks flat. And we got this guy like, this is the frequency response before correction. Okay, I need most flat, most truthful headphones for mixing. I don't need pleasant but truthful. So this guy's like, he doesn't want good sounding headphones. He wants truthful, flat headphones. And if we look at SonarWorks Sennheiser HD 650 review, Long Live the King. It's hard to overstate the importance of the Sennheiser HD 650. For SonarWorks, this headphone was used to translate a neutral sound from speaker to headphone. They're also used by our engineer team as reference headphones, so they're really special to us. Let's find out whether you should get excited for these, about these. And then pros: flattest headphones we've ever measured. Sub-bass extension greatly improved with SonarWorks, so it has weak sub bass. That's the con. So if we look at this guy's video, he basically shit talks all these different headphones, pulls up distortion specs, and the problem is, again, he's the elephant in the room is, what target is this guy using? I use the industry standard diffuse field compensation. So if we look up HD 650, he's talking about, okay, and we use diffuse field, take off all the adjustments. So we flatten the Sennheiser HD 650 to diffuse field, which is the only objectively good target that people should be using. We can see, for diffuse field is known as being thin, shouty, bright. So the fact that the HD 650 is warmer and bassier, you could argue that's a good thing. The fact that the treble is reduced, you could argue that's a good thing. Up against diffuse field, because when diffuse field looks like this when it's not flattened. So diffuse field is known for being too shouty in this region. So the fact that it's reduced on the HD 650 is a good thing, you could argue. People say the diffuse field is too bright. So the fact that it's reduced over diffuse field, you could argue that's a good thing. And people say that, it's too thin. So the fact that it's more than diffuse field, you could argue that's a good thing. So what you could do is you could tilt diffuse field by like -1. Okay, and now it's starting to look a bit more like the Sennheiser HD 650, but what you see here is actually true. What you're looking at is actually true about the HD 650s. They have thin weak bass. They're very shouty, and they have a treble veil. But it's actually a little bit worse than this, because I'm one of the people that think diffuse field level treble sounds really good, bright, open, clear, good for critical listening. So that's where we have these other adjustments. So this is my target. So my target basically says that the HD650s do not have enough treble, they do not have enough bass, and some people talk about the 3 kilohertz shout. So this is really bad. This is the Sennheiser veil and the weak bass. And if you put on the Sennheiser HD650s and you think they sound too dark, too veiled, you can't hear the treble information good enough, and you think the bass sounds really lifeless and weak and you're not getting the amount of energy you need, then my target with more bass, more treble would be better. So if we look at this, we can see just how bad the HD650s are for me, who wants more bass, more treble. This is nothing but mids. So this is not flat to me. And there's a lot of audio equipment out there, the Audio Hype 2, EM6Ls, the DT990s with worn ear pads. So there's a ton of people out here with worn ear pads. So there's a ton of companies and people out here that agree with what I think. That at the very least, the Sennheisers are actually not, bright enough. They're not bassy enough. These sound really dark and weak in the bass, and there's better equipment out there, with better bass and better treble extension, more bright, open, clear, articulate, more powerful deep bass. So Sennheiser HD650 on my target is not flat at all. And you could say, well, that's just your target. Well, this is also a lot of other people's targets. My target is actually this end game target. This Harman target, Harman Mark II target, it's basically Harman with extended treble, is widely used by a lot of people currently. And the end game target that I use is widely used by a lot of people. So we can see, again, the green line has the weakest bass, weakest treble out of a lot of audio equipment, and this leads to a lack of dynamics, a lack of dynamics in the bass and the treble. And there's something called the Sennheiser veil. Now, again, we're supposed to be talking about this video here. The main thing is when we get to the end of the video.
Full stop. It's way easier to make a pair of high quality speakers that sound very accurate than it is to create a pair of headphones. That said, despite the fact that there's always going to be pros and cons and compromises involved in designing headphones, there are some headphones which get so close despite their compromises that I'm happy to recommend them. And that is the industry standard, legendary Sennheiser HD600 series of headphones. That's the only thing, in my opinion, despite the compromises, that gets close enough. You've got the HD600, the HD650, and now the more recent HD660S, and that's got two versions, the first iteration and the second iteration. Now, between the two iterations of the 660S, there's no major difference apart from the fact that I think the first one actually sounds slightly better, and you can pick it up now at a discount price because it's been replaced by the newer version. So although all of these headphones technically have...
So again, he is using DIY Audio Heaven to look at these headphones, and they don't show you the target that they're using to make things look flat. I mean, I think there's some in the documentation. This guy talks about, what target he uses. Sennheiser HD600. So yeah, there's a lot of people out there that try to make the HD600 series look flat. This 2.5K dip is a big problem. So if we go over to my stuff over here, and Again, there's some serious tonality problems with the HD 600, 650 series. Oops, that's not it. So we're going to bring in all of his favorite stuff. So these are the, headphones he says are the flattest. Again, we kind of have to remove adjustment. We have to use diffuse field. And then again, diffuse field is known for being thin, bright, shouty. And if you do a tilt, you do a tilt a little bit and kind of finagle it a little bit. It'll make the Sennheiser headphones look pretty flat. And when we go back to this reference thing, we can see the 2.5K dip, the 5K shout, a little bit of a treble hole, and then kind of goes up. So again, SonarWorks, SonarWorks, their target, the SonarWorks target here, is literally the freaking Sennheiser headphones. So this company deliberately, if we look at all these peaks and cuts here, it's literally the Sennheiser headphone tonality. And like a target should not match the tonality problems of a headphone unless it's propaganda to try to make this headphone look flatter and better than what it actually is. So they say that, it needs more sub bass. That's what SonarWorks says. There's a dip here. That's what they say. But what's really concerning is that the treble actually mirrors the tonality problems of the HD 650s. And that's to make it look flatter than what it really is. When we look at their propaganda, they did that deliberately to make these Sennheiser headphones look really flat, but they do have to admit that 2.5K dip is not supposed to be there and it's weak in the sub bass. But we got these people, saying like, I need the most flat, most truthful headphone for mixing. I don't need pleasant, but truthful. So yeah, the Sennheiser HD 600, 650 and stuff, they don't sound good. They sound veiled, they sound shouty, they have weak, deep bass. They're very lifeless, shouty, and veiled. They sound terrible, and they're also very grainy. The HD 600 anyway has very grainy treble, so we can see the differences between these headphones. The 660S2 has this huge 5.5K peak that's more extreme than all of them. They all have the 5.5K peak, but we can see the green one has the weakest 5K peak fatigue. It also has the least amount of treble spikes. We can see the pink one here, the 600 series, has the biggest peaks in the treble. It's known for being the brightest, but these spikes are actually very grainy. A lot of the treble information is still way down here, but it has these grainy treble spikes, so you don't really get the treble detail. You just kind of get this grit, this grain from these like 3 spikes shooting from the depths of the Sennheiser veil. The 650 and green are meant to get rid of that grain, so they're darker, but they don't have those peaks that we see here on the purple pink line. So the 650 sounds smoother, darker, less grainy. They have less 5K peak fatigue. I bought the HD 600s, and that 5K peak fatigue was terrible. The grain was terrible. The lack of treble information, it was terrible. The weak bass was terrible. So then I bought the 650s. Sure, there was a little bit less blunted. That 5K peak is still there, but it's kind of blunted. It's less fatiguing, but it's still audible. It's still annoying. The grain was gone. So it was a little bit more pleasant, a little bit less fatiguing. Even on this DIY Audio Heaven website, near the top he has taming the treble. Because headphones, again, they have problems. So what a lot of people end up doing is dampening the treble of a lot of headphones because they have, treble fatigue. So if we look at the HD 600s, 650s, basically the 650s are a dampened version that tames the treble spikes. It's kind of like, you know, the DT990s that I recommend. They sound with fresh ear pads. They sound very harsh in the treble, and then with worn ear pads, the spikes are smoothed out. So we can see, you know, my headphones over time with worn ear pads and kind of gold here. You know, the spikes are gone, they're dampened. So a lot of headphones, even the Sennheisers, have fatiguing treble. And a lot of times all you have to do is just use a dampener. I kind of talk about that on my website. But like in my articles here, my dudes. I can see dampening somewhere. Dampening filters. So we can see like, you know, this IEM without dampeners is very spiky. You know, the DT990s is tamed. You know, a lot of treble taming you can do to dampen frequencies. But the main thing is this video, you know, it's so easy to go on like DIY Audio Heaven and look at headphone and IEM reviews. And like, you know, he's got like these distortion specs. Like, look at this. So I noticed in this video he talks a lot about like, but at yeah, this is much louder than normal listening level. So a lot of headphones will start distorting in the bass if you know, play them at anything above 85 decibels is hearing damage. So even 94 decibels is way too loud. So this distortion here, and especially, you can make any headphone look terrible. Oh, look, it distorts in the bass. But that's at extreme listening levels. And I noticed this guy like will use, you know, DIY Audio Heaven bass distortion specs to talk crap. And bass distortion is never really heard unless you're boosting the bass with EQ to excessive levels, or you're playing it at exceptionally loud levels. But somewhere in here he's kind of
so pretty. And in the hi-fi world, there's many absolutely beautiful high-end headphones with wood and metal, and they look so pretty, and many of them sound exciting. But are we really looking for exciting sounds and aesthetics when it comes to pro audio, or are we looking purely for audio accuracy?
So I just wanted to say again, a lot of people think flat, lifeless, dead is a good thing. And the thing is, they're actually recommending headphones that are not just flat and lifeless. They're actually too dark and the bass is too weak to actually match a flat studio monitor. So again, he recommends headphones that we talked about have no bass, no treble, and you can make it look flat on a graph depending on the target. Okay. And a lot of companies and people will literally adjust the target to make these headphones look flat. Just like I did. I can make, you know, the Biodynamic DT990s, the SimGod EM6Ls, the audio equipment that I use look flat. I can make it look flat. Okay? But if you're using a target closer to what these people are using, you know, they're using something with like a diffuse field tilt, then all of a sudden my headphones look very V-shaped, very, you know, bassy and trebly, you know. So you can say, oh, well, actually your shit is very, you know, bright and bassy, you know, and then you could, you know, adjust adjust it to make it look flat. Okay, so the only diffuse field is a non-manipulated target. Okay, and flat diffuse field without adjustments, makes my audio equipment look like this. Okay. So the flat diffuse field is like the only thing that people have not like bastardized, and you know, it's not based on subjective listening. And this is how the Sennheiser headphones sound to me. Flat to unmanipulated diffuse field. They have a huge 5K peak. They have a huge treble veil. They have weak bass. Okay, deep bass. But if you looked at this target, you'd be like, oh, this is muddy and overly warm. This is shouty here. This is veiled. And I have to admit, that's how these sound, you know. Shouty, veiled. But again, I want the bass way up here. So, you know, there's a lot wrong with these headphones. Okay? So it's how you make them look on the graph. It's to manipulate.
Surprised in how much they cost compared to a lot of these other headphones I've tried and going to be discussing in this video. So all of these headphones that I'm mentioning in this video, I have personally tested and listened to and have assessed high-end open back planar magnetic headphone design just by slapping EQ or some sort of weird effects on there. If you believe that, you'll believe anything. You've just been fully marketed to with the pro audio marketing hype.
Oh,
got some plug-in bundled with them, which adds EQ, own category on Toman or Sweetwater, and then they've just got some.
Oh, I'm gonna share this. That's funny. Because again, I don't use EQ. I agree. I don't like EQ.
Plug-in bundled with them, which adds EQ and diffusion effects. No, you can't just make that headphone sound like a high-end open back planar magnetic headphone design just by slapping EQ or some sort of weird effects on there. If you believe that, you'll believe anything. You've just been fully marketed to with the pro audio marketing hype. No, you can't do that. You can't make a $50, $100 type headphone sound magically like a $4,000 headphone just by slapping EQ on it. Because if you could, everyone would do that and everyone would just be happy.
See, there's a huge fallacy that a $6,000 headphone sounds good just because it costs a lot.
Just by doing that. The final category of headphones that we're going to exclude are going to be over-ear closed back headphones. Now, I'm not saying that these are inherently bad. These are extremely good for certain use cases. For example, if you have an air conditioning unit on or some road noise in the background, or having closed back headphones are going to exclude more of that noise and going to allow you to work slightly better. And also, they have some technical advantages because they might increase the sensitivity of the drivers slightly, having more powerful bass. So they have many advantages, but they also have disadvantages. Like anything in this world, there's pros and cons. And some of the disadvantages for closed back headphones is if you make a closed back headphone, the cup, you're creating a tiny little chamber on your ear. And anytime you create an enclosed space, a chamber, now you have problems with resonances, with the sound bouncing around in there and creating resonant frequencies. And the resonances, because the chamber is so small, are going to be in the mid frequencies, upper mid frequencies and higher frequencies, because the smaller the chamber, the higher the resonant frequencies are going to.
So yeah, basically what he's saying, which is, it's pretty true that open back headphones tend to sound better. So like we got the DT770s versus the DT990s. So he was basically saying that, like, yeah, you get better bass. Yeah, you get better bass with closed backs, because closed backs will trap in that deep bass. So we can see the DT770 closed back headphone here has better bass extension, but it also has this warbling effect in the bass. It's got this huge 4K cut problem. It's got these peaks and cuts in the highs. So the DT990s are much smoother, but they tend, since they're open back, they have a problem keeping that sub bass energy. They end up rolling it off because it's an open back. It doesn't trap in that deep bass. And we can actually see that with much more expensive headphones like the HD800S, which is open back. Hold on. I'm going to refresh this. That headphone is there. Don't bullshit me. hold on. We've got a problem here. 800S and the 820. So the Sennheiser 820 is a closed back version of the HD800S, and we'd see my target with all is actually, so the 820 is the closed back version of the 800S, and we can see it has that warbly bass, as well as more issues in the highs, more peaks and cuts. So yeah, the open back version tends not to have the warbly bass that a lot of times a closed back will have. So you get smoother response in the open back, but we can see there's holes and shit. So this is a huge example of price to performance. So here's the HD800S on. Let's use my target, my end game target. So, or we could use this one. Okay, so we can see now we bring in the DT990s. So we can see my headphone measures flatter than the DT990s are like less than $200. The HD800S is over $1,000, and we can see the DT990s have smoother, more transparent treble. They don't have this huge 5.5K peak or this cut here. You know, my headphone has better bass extension. So this is an example of a much cheaper headphone having smoother highs, better bass extension, you know.
Going to be, the bigger the chamber, the lower the resonant frequencies are going to be. But the bigger the chamber, the more damping material you can stuff in there.
Okay, so I just wanted to have this near the end of the video where it kind of shows price to performance, where all the little dots are mainly on the cheaper headphones and earbuds and all that shit. So the correlation, conclusion, our understanding, perception, measurements of headphones sound quality has not kept pace with consumer demand. Evaluation. 2 independent studies measured over 400 headphones and came to similar conclusions that there is little correlation between the price of a headphone and its frequency response, the single best indicator of sound quality. Most professional and consumer headphone designs today do not comply with FF and diffuse field targets recommended by current headphone standards, which warrants the objective method whose results bear good relation to those from subjective assessments or under research, blah, 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 blah.